Hello. Onion Keister here. So for tonight's show, I am playing Dr. Frankenfurter. I will put an image here from Rocky Horror Picture Show. This is a pretty intensive makeup, so I'm doing it now rather than trying to do it at the venue where there's just not as much light and mirrors. I am recording this at the beautiful Pink Palace of the one and only Magdalena Fox. So credit to her aesthetic and all these stripes. But so this will just be another makeup one where I kind of speed it up and I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing while I'm doing it. This is a semi-dry run of a Frankenfurter makeup, but I've done a lot of research and I have a couple of different pictures that I'm using as reference. And we're just going to go forward with it. This is one I'm going to have to touch up throughout the night because I'm going to have to travel and eat dinner and put in contacts, and I'll probably add the lashes and a final lip later, but this is what it's going to be. So let's go. Okay, y'all, I'm going to be a little honest with you here. I recorded this at the end of October, and I am recording this voiceover now here at the beginning of January. So I'm going to try to remember everything I did here, but it's a pretty straightforward sort of special effects makeup over the top mild drag look. What I'm doing here is I am doing the glue stick brow erasing technique that is used often by drag queens, basically all the time by drag queens, and sometimes with special effects. I did a similar look for when I did my Hocus Pocus Winifred Sanderson YouTube video, which you can see down in my other videos, and I'll link it below as well. So basically what you do is you're just going to take a glue stick, glue over top of those hairs, giving you a lot of glue, and then right here I am using the thicker brush. You often get this, one side is something to separate lashes from mascara, and then the other side is like a brow brush. So I'm basically trying to brush my brows as flat as possible while the glue is still pretty tacky. If you let it get too dry, I personally have found that it starts to ball up. So now I'm just flattening them. Here you can see, ooh, so flat to my face. Luckily I don't have a lot of brow, so this is actually a pretty easy technique for me to use. Now, while those brows are drying, I am taking my eyeshadow primer and putting a little bit over the top of the brow as well, and covering my entire eye. For Frankenfurter, there's a lot of eye makeup that goes into this look, so I want to make sure I'm getting in a good eye primer to do this. Had I had a second chance, I probably would have used a glitter eye primer, which tends to have a little bit more tack and a little bit more stick, especially up on the brows. But, you know, this is what I was working with. Also gonna throw a little bit under the eyes just because they were looking pretty bad at that point. Here I'm just using my finger to dab in all of this. You can use a brush. I just like the warmth of being able to really push it around my eye and push it into the brows. This eye primer is from e.l.f. It is just kind of like a fairly neutral color on me. You can see it brightens a little bit. Now I'm taking a face primer. I normally don't use a face primer. I luckily have a skin that doesn't require it most of the time. I can usually get through the day with just foundation and a setting powder if I need it. But this was a look that was a lot, so I definitely wanted to have the primer there to make sure I could white out my face for Frankenfurter, but also because I wore this look for like 6 hours. I did this look and then we drove to Pennsylvania and then I wore it through dinner, and then we had to get ready for the show, and then I performed, and then I took it off on the ride home. So I was in this look for a long time, and the primer is what helped. It also would help with applying this kind of lightening foundation. Here I am combining like my regular kind of tinted moisturizer with a face white cream. If you saw my makeup tutorial for doing like a clown makeup, this is the same one I used. For that, I wish I had had a cream, but I didn't, and it came a little, it came through a little thin. But for this, I was like, haha, this is gonna be great for the Frankenfurter look, because his face isn't clown white, it's just a little whited out. It's a little bit more theatrical, a little bit more for the stage. He's not a clown. So here what I'm just blending this white all over, not carrying it down into the neckline that much, just a little bit, because that's the way the makeup looks. So I'm gonna let this white kind of set into the skin and then set it as I need to. But right now I am taking just a thin angled brush and I am going over top of where my brows are. For this one, you'll see I'm like occasionally looking at the photo on the side because I was trying to mimic the brows. For Frankenfurter's brows, it's a pretty thin line, goes across, and then what it is there's like a thicker edges closer in on the eye. There's me looking. I mean, I like this look right here. Very pantomime. But yeah, I'm just using a black powder and laid it in there. You could use like a cream or anything like that, but I still had the foundation was still a little wet on my face, so this helps stick it on. Here you can see I'm kind of branching down that brow to create that kind of thicker, blunter look at the end that tapers off as the brow goes on. I am basing this using the lines from my nose as where to set these in. So if you have a different shaped face than me, which you probably do, you're gonna just want to base it off of your bone structure in your face as well. Here I'm just taking the powder and filling in those edges that I kind of laid out beforehand. It looks a little wild when it's just the brows and nothing else, but once the eyeshadow gets in there, you really do start to see how it makes sense for this look. And this is me just kind of using a tapering to taper those brows to the back. You just want to be a little careful with this because I did have all that white foundation on, and you know, if I messed up, I would have to just clear it off. It's okay if they're not completely symmetrical. It's gonna be fine. There's a lot of makeup going into this look, so don't beat yourself up over keeping them 100% symmetrical. Even with like a theater makeup, you know, the brows are sisters, not twins, so let's work on it. Now what I'm doing is I am taking a kind of like softer black powder, and I am taking that line that I'd done at the end of the brows straight down to my inner eye, and I'm just gonna kind of cover basically like almost the entire area. Later I'm gonna go in and lighten some of this, but right now I'm just setting the natural huge eye shape that Frankenfurter has with his eyes. I'm doing a little kind of soft C shape there, tying the end of the brow down to the end of my eyelashes. I will later add a liner as well, which will help with this, but for now it's just laying in that huge swath of color. And then I just repeat the same thing on the other eye. I'm sorry that I often cover my face while doing makeup tutorials. Here I'm trying really hard not to. My problem is that I tend to put in my contacts later. At this point I was working with not great contacts that often made my eyes water. So since I was going to be wearing this look for so long, I was waiting to put in my contacts until the very end. So I unfortunately have to hold the mirror pretty close to my face because my sight is not that great. So here you can see they're pretty done now. I'm just kind of blending it to kind of soften the swatch, you could say. Here I'm taking a darker shadow and I am almost doing like an opposite of a cut crease. A cut crease, for those of you who don't know, is when you do a really heavy line, sometimes with an eyeliner pencil on your crease, often done by drag queens for a really strong artistic look. But I was doing it more on the inside here because Frank does have a lot of inner eye makeup. Here I'm just taking a liquid liner. I prefer a felt tip. I used to prefer a dip-in brush, but here I'm just taking a felt tip liner, and I'm just gonna line the eyes. You can see it helps to even out with the brows already. It was looking a little strange before, but this is gonna help tie it in. There we go. Liner done. Now what I am is I'm taking a pencil liner and I am doing that cut crease that I talked about before. I'm going over top of the entire eye. When it comes to pictures of Frankenfurter, the makeup is definitely different in different ways. So sometimes it's the stage makeup, sometimes it's the movie makeup, and even the movie makeup changes a lot with his kind of quintessential look. So for this one, I'm going off of one where it is a firm cut crease. So to do this, you just want to kind of keep your eye open, look at the mirror and see where that crease falls, and then just take that pencil and go across it. You can smudge it out. Here I'm also tying it down into the corners of my lashes where I had done my eyeliner to create that shape. So you're basically creating like that almond shape on your eyelid. Here I'm just taking a black powder and I'm going between my lashes. At this point, I didn't want to use a black liner on my upper inner lid. I've now started doing that, but at this point I knew I was going to be wearing this for so long, it probably would have just smudged off anyway, and it would have just irritated my eye more. This is a nice way to kind of get some color in between your lashes so you don't have as much showing, and it kind of helps set the pencil or a liquid liner. Now I'm just taking kind of a side tapered brush, I guess you would say, and I'm just filling in a little bit more of that outer area. This is like your quintessential smoky eye technique, taking the outside, laying some dark shadow, and smudging it in. Now I'm taking that liquid liner and I'm going over those brows again just to sharpen them. Since the makeup had pretty much been placed at this point, I knew how it was going to look, and I wanted to darken those brows because there's so much eye makeup going on at this point. A liquid liner is almost always going to be the darkest shade that you can get on your face. It's a literal paint, basically. So here I'm just painting in those brows. Here I am dotting some primer on my eyes because I'm going to use this to affix some glitter. Here I am dabbing on that glitter. I was just using a regular iridescent glitter. This isn't necessarily part of Frank's makeup in his most used look. This was more so for the stage, but I think it did also add a nice dimension to my eyes. It made them stick out a little bit more. If you didn't want to use glitter, you could just kind of use a light shimmer and lay it in there. But you can see it does bring out my eyes and give them an iridescence. Here I'm just lining again, just to keep that line sharp since the glitter kind of covered up some of it. Thanks again to Magdalena Fox for letting me do my makeup in her Barbie palace here. This is mascara. You kind of know. For this, the thicker the better. I'm gonna add lashes later, so this is basically just to keep it so that my lashes are naturally a little brown. I'm gonna be wearing a black wig. This is a intense makeup. The lashes are gonna be black, so I'm just coloring my lashes to match the other ones. It's not a super boosting or lengthening or thickening one. It's just to make sure that they're covered so everything blends. I look so proud of myself. Here I am just taking a brush and I'm brushing underneath my eyes, getting rid of that extra powder. And now I am using a white pencil to go inside my waterline, another drag queen trick. This just makes your eyes look a little bit bigger and wider. I kind of forget if this is in the Frankenfurter makeup. I'm gonna say it's probably not, but this is for me just to widen my eyes because I don't have the same eyes as Tim Curry, and I wanted them to look a little bit bigger and more expressive, especially for the stage. If you want this to stay a little bit longer, a thing you can do is take a Q-tip and run it along your waterline on the bottom to dry it out, and then put the pencil over top. Waterlines are wet. It's a waterline, but a pencil isn't going to stick to a wet area, so drying it off a little bit first and then using a liner over top is going to make it stick longer. Now I'm just throwing in some contour. There isn't actually a lot of contour on Frankenfurter. It's mainly just a blush, really. This is a situation where I was looking between multiple pictures and I couldn't really figure it out, but I wanted to give myself a little bit of contour to look more like Tim Curry's face. It almost kind of gives it a more masculine look. And here I am laying in a little bit of the blush. Later, I went back and added a lot more because I realized that my face just looked too whited out and I needed a bit more color in there. In some of the pictures it's really strong, so in there I'm just dabbing on a little bit of highlighter, and now I'm going in with that black pencil and I'm going below my waterline to create that bigger eye look. So I'm basically going down below where my lashes begin, and I'm doing the full under eye there. I personally rarely do a full under eye line, but this is called for it. And here I'm taking the powder and I'm just helping to set that pencil by using a little bit of powder. With makeup, if it's kind of wet to the touch or moist, you can throw powder on it to help set it and bake it in there. Look at them eyes. So here I'm just adding a little bit more. Here I'm actually using like a black. I decided the brown was not giving me what I needed. I do later lessen this because it seemed a little too intense. It'd be good for the stage, it'd be good for a night out, but it was just a little too much for this makeup look. I'm starting to kind of look into like a skeleton makeup. Okay, I'm just taking a little bit more, kind of like a white iridescence, and going over the white parts of my face. There's Mags coming in. Hey Mags, thanks for letting me use your place to do my makeup. Just brushing out and fading that contour a little bit. And I'm like, no, that's too much. So here I'm just taking a little bit of that powder and going over top of it. Lighten it a little bit. Do a little bit of highlight on my cheeks and nose. Like I said, I later go in and throw more blush on to lessen that. Here I am lining my lips. Frankenfurter has a pretty defined lip look, so I am using a darker, almost maroon, dark maroon lip liner. That's where I realized, oh, you can't see it. So I am going to line. I'm overlining slightly. If you are a person who's doing this who has smaller lips, totally feel free to go outside your lip line and really give yourself a bigger, fuller pout. When doing your lips, always kind of do the cupid's bow, the outer parts, and then connect. And on the bottom, once again, do the middle section, the outer corners, and connect. It'll give you a lot more control with lining your lips. And now that that is set, I'm just using a red liquid lipstick to fill it in. If this was like a shorter thing, I probably would have used a stick lipstick, a little bit creamier, because it's not going to dry out my lips. But this I knew I was going to wear for a long time. I did later add a cream lipstick over top of this and dot some red glitter on it for the final look, but I knew I was going to be eating, and I didn't want to eat that glitter. So there it is. You can see I have that nice defined darker lip with that brighter red on the inside. Checking it out. All right, and here's the look. So this is me after I added a little bit more cut crease definition and a little bit more blush to it because I felt it needed it. So that is my look. Here is the final put together with the costume. I hope you feel like you're able to duplicate this yourself. There's a little comparison, and you have a good one.